Hello, everyone. Today, I'm going to talk about the large language models and the privacy concerns. And large language model, probably the most popular one is ChatGPT. And there was a research using GPT-2, and the research basically showed that these models you can trace back the original training data, which is fairly scary. So here it goes. So extracting training data from large language models. And you can see here, they are like these very large language models on the private data sets. And this paper demonstrates that adversary can perform training data extraction attack to recover the individual data. And they tested it on GPT-2, which was trained on public data. And they were able to pick out like personally identifying information and many things like that. So that kind of surprised the academic community at the time. So the summary of the paper is that it demonstrates large language models memorize and lead individual training examples, and sample memorize strings among generated text by using 6 different metrics, some complexity index, and categorize and analyze the generation. So what it did was that it had some of these and get some data out of it through that, make a query to GPT-2, and the GPT-2, which is used to predict the next words. It basically spits out like here, like something that is very specific. It's redacted for privacy, but you can see that it actually extracts a very specific private information. So what does it do is that we first generate the text here, many text, and then there are 6 categories of how rare they are. So memorization can occur in many ways, and some are okay. Like we want the large language model to memorize a regular pattern, like something like if you give the city, then maybe the zip code should be memorized and come next. So that is fine. What is not fine is that when it can be doing like overfitting, for example, and just an isolated point is being extracted and just memorized by itself. Okay? Basically, we sort those rare, exceptional memorization and remove the duplications and choose a top 100 of those very surprising text. Then search in the internet whether it exists or not. Okay? And it turns out that those match in the internet. So, and how do they actually find that memorization? Well, if a certain text occurs, let's say, in thousands of documents, then maybe it is a pattern and we want them to be remembered. But let's say from one document, then there's a particular text, like personal name and address and email. We don't want that to be memorized, isn't it? So if it's from just one document, it's one eidetic memorization. So typically like 3 or 10 documents only. From those appearing text is being memorized in the large language model and then being traced out is a problematic memorization. So the result is that out of the 1,800 picked out samples, 604 were sort of those kind of troublesome memorization based on several complexity index here. Some of them is like named individuals, contact information, these kind of things that checks back and the authors actually check back on the internet and those existed. Right? And those are not that there because it appeared in tens of thousands of documents, but just in one document, for example, it just appeared. Okay? So, and also, there was a thought that maybe this is because when the model is language model is small, it just overfits and does it. So large language models shouldn't have those memorization. But it turns out that GPT-2 kind of, which is a very large language model, it actually, here, the very large language model actually tends to even more trace back the training data set, like the memorizations, rather than the small language models. So how do we mitigate it? There are a couple of things that were proposed, but not quite perfect. One of them is differential privacy, which is adding noise in the training data. But by doing so, you lose the accuracy of the training data set. So there is a serious compromise to be considered. Okay, but so this was basically showing a research that shows you in the world of ChatGPT, there can be a privacy concerns because these ChatGPT models actually may contain some private information that can be traced back by just asking smart question. It can back out, let's say, passwords or emails of a person's personal information. Thank you for watching this episode.